There is a mountain in Bhutan that no human being has ever stood on, not even close. It rises to 7,570 meters above sea level, the highest unclimbed peak on the entire planet. Its summit has never been touched by a hand, a boot, a rope, or a single steel piton. From the valleys below, it appears above the clouds like something never meant to be reached. This is Gangkhar Puensum, a name most people on Earth have never heard and fewer can find. It sits in eastern Bhutan, along the Tibetan border, ringed by glaciers that have never been mapped. The mountain is not simply unclimbed because it is difficult, it is unclimbed because it is forbidden. Bhutan banned all mountaineering above 6,000 meters in 1994, and that ban has never been lifted. The official reason given was protection of local spiritual beliefs, but the full story runs far deeper. The Bhutanese have always believed these high peaks are the permanent residence of deities and sacred spirits. To climb them would be to trespass on ground that no human civilization has any right to enter. 4 separate climbing expeditions had attempted the summit of Gangkhar Puensum before the ban closed it forever. None of them reached the top, turned back by weather and terrain that no map had accurately described. When the ban came down in 1994, the mountain was removed from the world's list of accessible summits. And there it has remained ever since, unbroken at the top, completely beyond the reach of human ambition. The glaciers around its base are ancient and unmeasured, flowing through valleys satellites can only partially read. Rivers born here carry glacial meltwater into the valleys below, cold and blue-white, with no name in any atlas. The air at this altitude is so thin that birds rarely cross it, and the sky turns almost black. No trail has ever been cut to the high flanks, no base camp, no fixed rope, nothing. The world has climbed Everest thousands of times already, but Gangkhar Puensum has never once allowed a human summit. It is not the most dramatic peak by appearance. It simply refuses to become part of our story. Every other peak of comparable height has been cataloged, photographed from above, and placed on the record. This one has not, and by deliberate legal and spiritual decree, it never will be on any record. The clouds around Gangkhar Puensum circle the peak rather than crossing it, as if observing a boundary.
Gangkhar Puensum. That mountain tests every limit. Here, standing there, you feel the gaiety of the world, and yet you feel lighter than air. It's hard to put into words.
Climbers who cautiously approached its base before the ban described a feeling they could not rationally explain. They said the mountain felt present and aware in a way that rock and ice should not be. That sensation was enough for Bhutan to formalize in law what its people had always known instinctively. Some places on Earth are not for us, and Gangkhar Puensum is the most powerful proof of that. The eastern Himalayas, where Gangkhar Puensum stands, are among the least explored mountain ranges on this Earth. These are not peaks softened by tourism. They are raw geological formations that almost no one has entered. The snowfields on the upper slopes have accumulated for thousands of years without any human disturbance whatsoever. Glaciers descend from the peak's flanks in slow rivers of blue ice that crack and groan through the night. The sounds from these glaciers carry down into the valleys, a deep, low grinding that fills the dark. At dawn, the upper ridges catch the morning sun first, glowing red gold, while every valley below stays dark. Cloud systems build consistently from the south, rising from the Bengal lowlands and hitting the Himalayan wall hard. Monsoon clouds stack against the mountains in vertical towers that reach 15,000 meters into the atmosphere. The precipitation they release eventually feed rivers that run all the way to Bangladesh and the Bay of Bengal. In winter, the same valleys that flood in summer become bitter corridors of ice, wind, and near absolute silence. Snow leopards move along the ridgelines at altitudes no human expedition has crossed since the 1994 ban. They use routes across these mountains that have never been surveyed or followed by any research team. Takin, Bhutan's national animal, built like something assembled from the wrong parts, grazes near the glacial margins. Black bears descend from the high forests in autumn to the lower valleys as cold pushes everything downhill. The forests below the permanent snow line are thick with rhododendron and blue pine pressing against vertical cliffs. Waterfalls emerge from glacial melt high on the slopes and fall hundreds of cold meters into forest below. The river born from Gangkhar Puensum's glacial system runs clear in winter and gray-white with silt in summer. Satellite imagery of the upper mountain shows terrain never verified by any human presence on the ground. Entire ridge systems on the northern face remain unnamed, blank spaces in a world with almost no blanks. The weather around the summit changes faster than any forecasting model has ever successfully predicted or prepared for. A clear morning can become a full whiteout within 40 minutes as storm cells arrive without prior warning. The jet stream crosses this latitude in winter at speeds that would destroy any tent or modern equipment. At 7,000 meters, the temperature can fall to minus 50 degrees in a single darkening afternoon. The mountain generates its own complex localized weather systems that differ from the regional patterns measured below. Ice formations on the upper ridges, seracs the size of large buildings, shift and collapse without warning. The entire upper mountain is in constant slow geological movement that no human has ever witnessed directly. The landscape around Gangkhar Puensum is not simply dangerous, it is actively, continuously, and geologically alive. And below all of it, the rivers flow on, carrying the mountain, grain by grain, slowly toward the sea. Between 1985 and 1994, 4 mountaineering expeditions attempted Gangkhar Puensum from different approach routes entirely. The first was a joint Bhutanese-Austrian team in 1985 who arrived believing a summit was genuinely within reach. They found the approach routes poorly mapped and altitude effects more severe than any prior training had suggested. The second attempt came in 1986, a Japanese team that reached higher on this mountain than anyone before. They turned back near 6,800 meters when weather arrived from the north without any forecast giving prior warning. A third expedition arrived in 1994 as the last team to attempt the summit before the permit system closed. That team spent weeks at base camp watching weather windows open and close before their permit was revoked. Each team described the approach as psychologically unlike any high-altitude environment they had experienced before. The solitude was not peaceful, it was dense and absolute, unlike anything found on more familiar peaks. There were no abandoned camps from prior expeditions, no litter, no trace of anyone having ever passed through. The Bhutanese villagers near the mountain's base had no guiding tradition because no climbers had ever arrived before. They had their own relationship with the peak, offering prayers to the deity believed to live within it. Deity shares the mountain's name in local tradition.
In this tanka, the three peaks of Gangkhar Puensum are the Yulha, the mountain gods.
Gangkhar Puensum, the protector of this entire region.
Climbing to the summit, why some would not walk into a fire? It is not fear, not prohibition. It is a genuine difficulty. The question does not make sense in the same way.
When climbing teams arrived, the villages watched from a wary distance, uncertain what consequence these visits might bring. They offered no enthusiasm and no particular support, simply a respectful and concerned observation from the valley. The 1994 ban arrived, and local communities received it not as a restriction, but as a long-needed correction. It aligned the formal law of Bhutan with the spiritual law that had governed this mountain for centuries. Since the ban, no expedition has legally set foot on the slopes above the lower valley approaches. The government has reviewed the ban multiple times, and each review has confirmed it will remain permanently in place. In 2003, a Chinese team attempted the peak from the Tibetan side of the border and failed to summit. That attempt was unauthorized by Bhutan and triggered a significant diplomatic response from the Bhutanese government. The message was unambiguous. This mountain sits outside the framework of international climbing competition and record. A small number of researchers have been permitted access to the lower valleys, but never the upper terrain. Their reports describe a landscape in a state of preservation with no parallel in any accessible mountain range. The glaciers are intact, the wildlife undisturbed, the vegetation uncompacted by expedition foot traffic of any kind. Gangkhar Puensum is the only mountain of its size actively protected from any human summit by permanent law. It is the only peak on any climber's list that will remain officially and permanently beyond all human reach. All 14 peaks above 8,000 meters have been climbed, every single one of them. Hundreds of peaks between 7,000 and 8,000 meters have been reached and placed on the record. Gangkhar Puensum stands above 7,500, alone as the peak no human has ever reached. In the modern world, that fact is nearly incomprehensible. The age of unexplored summits was supposed to end. Satellites have already mapped the surface of Mars at higher resolution than terrain around this peak. And yet, No human foot has pressed into that summit snow, and by law, none ever will.
The restriction on climbing Gangkhar Puensum is a permanent Satsit Embantu regime. This ban is not temporary and underscores our commitment to cultural and natural heritage.
The country made a deliberate choice about what relationship it wishes to have with its highest geography. That decision was not made by climbers, geographers, or planners. It was made by belief alone. The belief that certain places carry a presence that human ambition has no right to disturb or diminish. Bhutan is a country that measures its national success through gross national happiness rather than economic output alone. The treatment of Gangkhar Puensum is entirely consistent with that philosophy. Some things are worth more untouched. In a world where almost every surface has been mapped, climbed, drilled, paved, fenced, or monetized somehow, this mountain stands as the single most significant geographical exception to the rule that humans go everywhere eventually.
Climate change is now threatening the glaciers below the summit with warmth they have never previously experienced. The ice fields that persisted for tens of thousands of years are retreating at a measurable rate each year. Even this mountain's isolation cannot fully protect it from forces operating at a planetary rather than a local scale. But the summit itself, that final unvisited point, remains exactly as it has always been. No one has watched the sunrise from that elevation above eastern Bhutan and looked down at the valley. No one has driven a flag into that ice or photographed themselves standing on that precise point of Earth. The snow there has never been compressed by a boot or disturbed by the weight of human arrival. It exists in geological privacy that no other peak of comparable height anywhere else on Earth can claim. The deities the Bhutanese believe reside there have never been displaced or asked to share their home. Somewhere in the silence above those final ridges, in the airless cold above the cloud layer highest edge, there is a summit looking out across the Himalayas in every direction without ever having been looked from. A place existing in the world geography, but refusing to exist inside the story the world tells about itself. Gangkhar Puensum is not simply the world's highest unclimbed mountain, it is the world's last true kept secret. And unlike every other secret this planet once held, this one has been deliberately and permanently kept that way.